Welcome back to another episode of I Do Not Need Another Camera. I do not need another camera, but as you know, I'm constantly scouring the internet, Facebook Marketplace, my neighbor's garage, my grandmother's basement, anywhere I can find deals. So why did I go for this particular deal? One, it was extremely inexpensive compared to what these cameras go for online on KEH and eBay. This particular deal was very, very inexpensive. So I jumped on it. I love the brand. I have many of these types of cameras, and this particular make of camera doesn't let me down. And lastly, I just love the styling of these three particular cameras. One is the same camera in two colors, so that might give you a clue. Anyway, let's check it out. Just make sure you have a decent box knife nearby. Camera number one, the Minolta 370. The Minolta 370, love this camera. So this is a 1980s camera, 1980s SLR film camera. A easy to use, basically designed to be used in aperture priority as much as possible, which is my favorite mode because I'm an amateur enthusiast photographer. So the X370 was an immediate hit, and you can see why. It looks beautiful and it's simple to use. One of the things that the public didn't like, however, was the fact that it didn't have a shutter speed dial. The X370 went for something different. Instead of a shutter speed dial, as you can see up in here, this is the shutter speed. We have a turn button at the front, and you literally turn the wheel and it will adjust the shutter speed. I actually quite like that feature, but apparently back in the time, the public didn't really enjoy that. So the X370 has a through the lens light meter. When you look through the viewfinder, on the right hand side, you're going to see your light meter settings, and all you get is the light meter indicator in the center, at the top, at the bottom, and it will just let you know if your exposure is correct. That's a great feature for this camera, but what it means is that you need a battery in order for that to work. And that's an LR44 battery. It's readily available. There's alternates out there as well. I'll put a link in down the bottom of the description for that. The lens then that comes with this camera, this Rocore f1.2 50mm bad boy, super smooth. I love the feeling of this lens itself. And then if we have a look on the top, this dial closest to the camera, as usual, any Minoltas, a lot of these SLR cameras, there's my f-stops there. So super simple. Again, the front dial is super simple. Good for street photography because we can do zone focusing with this. Anything from, what do we say, 0.5 all the way up to infinity, which means if you practice zone focusing, you can use these cameras, just set your distance, go ahead and shoot some street photography. And that's what I love to do. I use zone focusing. You check out some of my pictures on my Instagram and you'll see it's super handy and very, very simple to do. The X370, great street photography camera. Look at it. This camera was built to be good looking, and it is. You put this around your neck, go out, shoot street photography, People are going to ask you questions. They're going to come up to you and want a picture of you with your camera because this looks fantastic. Parts of the camera then. Obviously the lens at the front, but I'm just going to leave this 50 on there. It's good enough. At the top, button here is my shutter release, and then I have a tiny little window, and again, that's going to be my shutter speed. At the top then we have a hot shoe, and then my winding handle for the film itself. The back of the camera to the rear, we have our ASA or ISO setting here, and then the black button, depress this black button here to change my ISO setting. I'm just going to lock my ISO in when I start shooting, and then it is what it is. Very important at the top, on-off button for the light meter. On, off. It's red or it's green. On, off. To open the back flap then, lift the handle, pull. Look at that inside, immaculate. So let's talk about this camera and who should buy it, and should you buy it? My answer would be 100% yes. Now, I've seen a few reviews comparing this to the Canon AE1. Now, the Canon AE1 is every kind of student's dream, but that camera is upwards of $200. The AE1 is upwards of $200. This camera I just picked up off eBay with 2 other cameras for less than 50 bucks. I would say if you're a beginner, go for a Minolta every time. Save your money. Get to know what you're doing with these cameras. They're low cost, they're super robust, and they're very fun to shoot. Check out this picture I got from the hip, no viewfinder. I just saw a picture, I saw a composition, boom, fired the shot, and it's wonderful. Check it out. As with most of my deals, it doesn't stop there. I have 2 more cameras to unbox, so here we go. This is another good one, and I'm super happy. The Minolta 370N. The Minolta X370N. Why on earth would you sell this camera? This camera is so freaking cool. This is a 90s baby. And how do we know that it's 90s? Because made of plastic, that's why. Yes, in 1990, Minolta sent the production of their 370s from their home base, which was awesome, all the way over to China. Boom. It turns to plastic. But I don't dislike that, you guys. I like the 90s. I like the early BMWs. I love tag watches, and this reminds me of those. A lot of the same features as the original, apart from this had an added bonus, which is this little window in the back. So you get to see what film stock you've got in there and what ISO it is and etc, but I don't care. I just like that it's a little bit 90s and it's a little bit funky. Listen, this is not as popular as the metal 370, obviously. It's a little more it's faded on the hand grip, it's plastic, but you guys, if you love that jam like I do, it's dope. Some people like the 60s stuff and the 70s stuff. That tends to be metallic and chunky and steadfast, but I like this early plastic. Yeah, it's probably full of BPA, probably killed the planet a little bit manufacturing it. I'm not surprised if it did, but for me, the 90s were dope. And this reminds me of all the fun times I had in the 90s. Did I have any fun times in the 90s? Quick overview of the features again for you guys, very similar to the last one. It has the window instead of the dial for my shutter speed. Remember, people hated it. I love it. You change the dial. Let's have a look. Can you see that? Change the dial and it changes the shutter speed. Over on this side, an on-off switch for the light meter. It takes a battery in order to operate the light meter. On the back, we have our ASA window, which I'm just going to fire and forget. I put my film stock in there, set my ISO and leave it. That's just me. Some people don't do that. They like to change it and adjust it, and they're photographers. I'm an amateur. I leave it on the original setting for the film stock unless it's expired, and that's a whole other video. The lens on this bad boy is a Minolta branded lens rather than Rokkor, the other one. And this is a 50mm as well. It's a 1.17, so it's pretty fast. But this little gem came with, it's not broken, it's not. A skylight UV filter, probably. Oh look, a reflection of me, that's pretty cool. The SRT 101 feels completely different to the X370s, both the 370 and the 370N. This feels like a brick. The 101 feels great in the hands. I love the way that it feels. It feels reliable. It feels chunky. It feels mechanical. And you know why? Because it is. Oh my goodness. It sounds amazing. Let's see if we can take that shutter speed down to 1 second. See if this works, please. Boom. And then we know it works. It did not come with this lens. This is one of my lenses. So we got 2 lenses and 3 cameras, that's fine. I have so much Minolta glass. This is my Minolta 50mm 1.19 and it works fantastically. I might just keep it on this camera. So when I look through the viewfinder, on my right hand side, I can see my light meter. It's a needle in the middle and it goes up and down. If you shoot film, then you've done that before and you know what I'm talking about. And on the bottom, we've got more settings that are just gonna show me my exposure to make it super easy to use. So the f-stop is the closest to the camera ring and we can see it goes from 1.9 all the way up to 16. Super nice feel, it's clicky. And then again, we've got that zone focusing, anything from 1.75 on the front of this lens all the way up to infinity. So if you want to do zone focusing with street photography, the 101 is good as well. Should you buy this camera? Great question. It's a great question. Should you buy the SRT Minolta 101? Should you invest that $15 or $10 or $20, however much it's going to cost now, and buy a 101? I would say yes. These cameras were made in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and they're not being remade. If only to use it for a short while, shoot those pictures, get those nostalgic vibes, and just enjoy yourself now. The Minolta 370N and its big brother, the 370, definitely worth a look. These two cameras cost no money. I mean, the 370 can go for upwards of 120 bucks. So if you find one and it's a good price, get it, stick it on the shelf and sell it later. But the 370N is plastic, it's 90s. It's not gonna be worth much in my opinion, but it feels so good to shoot. And the images you get for it are absolutely fine. Both of these are good for beginner cameras as well, but you get those automatic functions. If you're just a beginner and you want aperture priority and those automatic functions, go for these. Alternatives to the ones we just saw in the mid-90s, I guess, and have a look at the automatic Minolta range. You push the button on these cameras with the auto-focusing lens on them, and they are going to autofocus, and when you pull the trigger, it's going to advance the film itself. Both of these cameras have LCD displays on the top, so it's going to show you what you're dealing with. Maxim 3i and the Maxim 300 SI, both very similar cameras. I mean, for the money, you guys, you can get these for like $2–3. I bought a box of maybe 15 Minolta automatic autofocus cameras, SLR cameras, and I got them for like 10 bucks, and they all work. So there we are, you guys. 3 very good cameras for no money. If you see deals, get them. If you like shooting 35mm, if you don't mind not being trendy, then Minolta's a good way to go. There are lots of people out there that shoot fantastic images using Minolta cameras. I myself am one of them. They won't let you down. And if they do, it was 5 bucks, 10 bucks, 20 bucks. Who cares? Get another one. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for joining me. Click, subscribe, like, and I'll see you on the next one.